Is Caio Borralho inactive? Is that how you view him? RDR did an interview, and RDR was breaking down the division and the title fight that we saw, and moreover, who should be next. And he dismissed Caio, and he wasn't rude about it, by the way. Like, believe it or not, while dismissing Caio, RDR did not look like a jerk. He looked like a person that was being objective, making a statement of fact. But I got to tell you, it doesn't feel that way. I haven't looked it up. I haven't done the research. I'm coming in asking you, the Eagles. Has Caio been inactive? And RDR went even further to say that Caio has not done anything meaningful this year over any ranked opponents or just a competition in general. Now, I haven't looked up the last date of a Caio Borralho fight, but I do think that he gets credit for as recently as this weekend. He went through training camp. He signed the agreement, even one of backup fighter, which takes tremendous courage. The backup fighter is going to go in on roughly 24 hours notice. Right? The backup fighter, at least for the point of it, is there in case something happens at the scale. So you are going to have 1 day's notice to go in against one of two potential opponents. Like, you really have to not care who you're fighting. That's an expression, and that's a way that you can bang your chest. But if you sign up to be a backup fighter, the potential of you getting called on the whole, I'm ready for anyone, anywhere, anytime, does now exist. And I would give Caio credit for that, in addition to the fact that he signed on to fight Imanov. Now, regardless of who you see as the top people in that division, Imanov is officially ranked number 2. I think that you might think that that matters. Guys in the top 5 are the guys that we discussed fighting for world titles. Caio sits just outside of that at number 6. But RDR has a different perspective, which is Caio should not be in the conversation because of his lack of wins over ranked opponents, and most importantly, and this is RDR himself, inactivity in the year 2025. Is that right? Without even going and looking it up, is that right? I remember where I was the last time Caio fought. I remember where I was in the specific room that I was at in Bristol, Connecticut on the campus of ESPN. But I can't remember the date. And it does feel like it was towards the end of last year.
August 24th, 2024.
August 24th of 2024, producer Ryan is telling me. That is a meaningful amount of time. A win over Jared Cannonier, that's a meaningful amount of time. I mean, RDR is not without... He's got wings on this argument. But what credit would you give Caio for locking down a ranking and for signing up to take on the champion of the world or the next best thing, right? I mean, he signed up to take on Dricus du Plessis or Khamzat Chimaev, knowing full well that you were going to be told on Friday and you're going to be in the ring on Saturday. It would just seem to me like, in the world of courage, if that is in fact the overarching thing that RDR is pointing about, risk, if that is the overarching argument that RDR is talking about, it would seem as though Caio gets a pass just because it would take tremendous courage, not to mention to have 2 contracts, one as backup fighter and then one as a main event fighter, 2 contracts signed simultaneously. But RDR's not completely wrong either. I mean, if I'm using words like, well, it seems, and perhaps you should give consideration to, that's me sidestepping the reality that RDR brings up, which is no ranked opponents, in fact, no opponents at all recently. All right. Because there is a battle going on right now. There is a battle for what is the true number 1 contenders match. What we have all decided to anoint, that's not official. Nobody has told us. Nobody has made this statement. What we have all decided to anoint, Caio versus Imanov. And then you get presented with Fluffy versus RDR. Should Fluffy win? That's one perspective I don't feel that you guys have taken this from. Like, if Fluffy wins, that's 9 in a row. The all-time record is 10. The all-time maximum that anybody has had to win before being given a title shot is 10. That was Merab, and by the way, that was with a caveat. Merab, around 7, could have gotten the title shot, openly said, I don't want it because it was against his teammate and friend, Aljamain Sterling. So it wasn't that he had to get and succeed 10 times, which is an all-time record. He got it somewhere around 7. And if Fluffy comes in and gets a victory over RDR, that's going to be 9, and I think that's going to be hard for you to look away from. Even if the rankings don't push him all the way up there, I think it's going to be hard for you to look away from. And I think it's something that you haven't considered. I don't think when you're breaking these down and you're looking at rankings and you're looking at who's been busy and who's got ranked opponents, I don't believe that you considered, with a victory, Fluffy has 9. That is a remarkably long time to not screw something up. And if you don't give it to Fluffy, who do you put Fluffy with? And that's where it gets a little bit complex. Like, of the 4 guys that we've narrowed this bracket down to, in many ways, Fluffy seems the least consequential. But if you go and look a little bit further, and you do start to bring in arguments like the one that RDA is making about Caio Borralho, and you start to look at breaks, and you start to look at what have you done for me lately in inactivity. If we were just use those words as our paradigm, it all of a sudden takes Fluffy from your perceived 4 out of 4 to perhaps number 1 out of 4. It's a fun time to be a middleweight. It's a curious time to be a middleweight. Khamzat Chimaev, by the numbers, just turned in the most activity we have ever seen in a middleweight title fight. The most activity, the most punches thrown in a fight that is being labeled for having a lack of activity. And in that very contest, the one taking the black eye is Chimaev because he was the victor. Chimaev's opponent, who did 1/10 of the work, one punch thrown by the opponent, Dricus du Plessis, for every 10 thrown by Chimaev, and he got a pass. Dricus is not being labeled a boring fighter. Dricus is not being labeled that there was anything that we should change or any rule that was applied or misapplied or should be revisited because of anything that he did on Saturday. It fully fell to Chimaev. To the victor goes the spoils. But who's next? Who's next at 185? The urgency to answer that question greatly changes if we decide that Chimaev is not doing the 9-week turnaround on the Abu Dhabi card. That is a mythical thing that was never written down, that was never a statement, that was never promised, that's not on a poster anywhere, but the idea did come about. If we're going to honor that idea, then the urgency of identifying the correct number 1 contenders match becomes more important. But if we move the date on Chimaev, it's a whole nother discussion. And as you're stating who you believe in order, and you pick the order, but we've got the 4, right? We got Borralho, we got Imanov, we got Fluffy, we got RDR. As you're deciding the order between those 4, don't you think it's a little bit odd that you don't bring Dricus into it? Is there a time you've had such a meaningful and dominant champion who was not considered for an immediate rematch for the very belt that he just lost? Keep that in mind. I'd love to know your thoughts.